Hello, I am Rick Wash from Michigan State University, and today I will be talking about how experts detect phishing scam emails. Phishing is a common problem in many CSCW systems. Today I am focusing specifically on email, which is one of the largest. Phishing occurs when someone sends you a message that pretends to be something it is not in order to get you to do something that you wouldn't normally do, such as giving them your password or transferring money. Today I'm reporting on a study I did to try to better understand how people successfully detect phishing emails. When things go right, how does that work? Using the critical decision method, I interviewed 21 IT experts to tell me about specific, potentially suspicious emails that he or she received, and then analyzed the process that they went through to determine whether that email was phishing. Let me begin with an example of one of these emails that I call the typo. Sarah was checking her email at work one afternoon, and she received an email with the subject Ann Taylor order. She had recently placed an order with Ann Taylor, so she decided that she should probably read this email. She noticed that it had looked similar to other emails from Ann Taylor. It included the familiar logo, it had legalese at the bottom, and it was directly addressed to her. It said that there was an issue with your order, and it had a big button she could click to check the status of the order. Near the end, she noticed there was a typo in the email. This is odd in a business email, and it caused her to wonder if someone was trying to scam her. She had previously fallen victim to a phishing scam pretending to be an email from Sprint. She suspected that the email wasn't legitimate but wasn't convinced yet. She hovered over the from address of the email, and it looked like just a bunch of characters rather than something like customer service at Ann Taylor. This told her conclusively that it was phishing, and she deleted the email. This story is an example of a three-stage pattern I found in how these experts detect phishing emails. First, they take the email at face value and engage in a sense-making process where they try to understand how the email relates to things in their life, in this case, a recently placed order. As they do this, they notice things that will make them suspicious about the email. They experience a cognitive shift where they change from trying to make sense of the email to being suspicious and investigating the email. They use their technical knowledge to closely examine the email and determine whether it is legitimate or not. Once they decide, then they then deal with it, which usually means deleting it. To really understand phishing detection, this shift from stage 1 to stage 2 is critical. So I did a second analysis of my data to look at what people noticed and how it led them to become suspicious. First, these IT experts didn't read and notice everything about the email. What they did notice was strongly influenced by their past experiences with similar emails. That is, it was based on their skills and expertise in the purported topic of the email. Sarah noticed the legalese because she had seen it before in similar emails. Some of the things they noticed had special meaning. They didn't fit into their current understanding of the email. These are discrepancies. I was able to categorize these discrepancies into three categories. Typicality violations are things that are different than what is typically present in other emails like this. This was the most common type of discrepancy. Inconsistencies are internal contradictions between the cues that they notice. And frame violations are logical problems with the email. Noticing a discrepancy is not enough to become suspicious. Most emails have discrepancies, and no one discrepancy is enough to tell if an email is phishing. Instead, discrepancies create a low level of anxiety in the person, a need for an alternative explanation for the email that explains those discrepancies. As people notice more discrepancies, this need for an alternative explanation builds. Then the person would notice something in the email that would trigger them to remember that phishing emails exist. Once triggered, they would realize that phishing is a possible alternative explanation. This would then lead them to the cognitive shift that I described earlier, to become suspicious and explicitly start investigating the email to determine if it was phishing. This slide includes a list of the cues that triggered participants in my study. So that is the process that experts follow to detect phishing emails. They begin by trying to make sense of the email. They notice multiple discrepancies, or things that are different from typical emails like this one. These discrepancies slowly build into a need for an alternative explanation for these discrepancies. Something in the email triggers them to remember phishing, which they then identify as a possible alternative explanation. They then investigate the email to conclusively determine whether the email is phishing or not. Understanding and describing this process is valuable because it can help us better target training. For example, in the paper, I use this process to identify 6 different ways that this process can fail. Each of these types of failures can benefit from a different type of training. Thank you.